My name is Natasha Cole, and this is where my story begins. For as long as I can remember, I believed family was meant to protect one another. I was the only daughter, but I never felt alone. My two brothers, Daniel and Brian, promised we would always look out for each other. We ate from the same table, shared childhood secrets, and dreamed of the future as one. I thought those promises were carved in stone. But promises, I learned, can break like glass. Slowly, things began to change. Daniel and Brian grew close to their college friends, Jason, Michael, and Aaron. They whispered together, laughed behind my back, and shared looks that made me feel like an outsider in my own home. Before I tell you how I got my revenge, hit that like button and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Trust me, you'll want to hear how this ends. I brushed it off, thinking it was only a phase. But then papers began disappearing from Father's study. Conversations ended the moment I entered a room. Strange bank transfers appeared with names I didn't recognize. At first, I told myself not to worry. But when Father passed away, the truth hit me like cold water. My name had vanished from his will. I was cut out completely. That was the day betrayal carved its mark into my life. Looking back, the signs were everywhere, but I chose to ignore them. A missing letter here, a hushed voice there. Phone calls would suddenly end when I walked into the room. Daniel and Brian held constant meetings with Jason, Michael, and Aaron. Their laughter was too loud, their secrets too guarded. I convinced myself I was being dramatic. They're just being boys, I whispered to my reflection. I wanted peace more than truth. Still, unease lingered in my chest like a heavy stone. Sometimes, I stumbled upon half-hidden documents shoved deep inside drawers. Other times, I noticed bank slips with amounts too large to ignore. Whenever I asked about them, Daniel brushed me off with a smirk, and Brian would quickly change the subject. Father noticed my worry and told me, "Families have storms, Natasha. Be patient." I nodded, but the storm I sensed was darker than anything patience could calm. Instead of clearing, the distance grew worse. Whispers replaced conversations. Their friends treated me like I was invisible. One evening, I found Daniel locking Father's study with nervous hands. That's when I realized, these weren't harmless games. The small signs I ignored were building into betrayal far greater than I imagined. When Father's health declined, our house turned quiet and cold. Nurses moved through the halls, and the sound of machines filled the silence. I stayed by his bedside, reading to him, brushing his hair back, and holding his hand. My brothers claimed they were busy with business matters, but I noticed them whispering in Father's study with their friends far too often. I thought they were planning his care. I was wrong. After Father passed, the lawyer summoned us for the will reading. I walked into his office with a heavy heart but steady hope. Father had always said the family estate was meant to protect me as much as my brothers. I believed those words. The lawyer's voice echoed as he read line after line. Then came the moment I had been waiting for, my name. Except, it never came. My portion of the estate was gone. My inheritance had vanished like it had never existed. I looked at Daniel. His smirk told me everything. Brian avoided my eyes, while Jason, Michael, and Aaron sat in the back with smug grins. That moment broke me. My brothers had betrayed me in the cruelest way imaginable, erasing me from Father's legacy. The night after the will reading, the house was supposed to be filled with mourning. Instead, I heard laughter and music from the study. Daniel, Brian, Jason, Michael, and Aaron toasted glasses as though they had won a prize. My father's death was their celebration. I stood in the hallway, unseen, listening to every cruel word. She actually thought she mattered, Jason chuckled. Natasha was never part of the plan. Love revenge stories? Subscribe now. We drop new ones every week, raw, emotional, and full of justice. Don't miss the next chapter. My chest tightened. I wanted to storm inside, but something stopped me. Rage was boiling, but a small voice in my head whispered, "Wait." Watch. Remember. I pressed my ear against the door. Daniel bragged about controlling father's accounts. Brian mentioned selling land father promised me. Their friends cheered like vultures circling a meal. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I memorized every word, every sneer, every insult. While they celebrated, I slipped away to my room and opened a notebook. Line by line, I wrote everything I had heard. For the first time, my pain had direction. They thought they had silenced me forever. What they didn't know was that their celebration had lit the first spark of my revenge. Days later, I searched father's study. The air smelled of dust and betrayal. I knew my brothers hid something, and I was determined to find it. I checked drawers, cabinets, and even behind picture frames. Hours passed, but finally, beneath the false bottom of father's desk, I found what they had tried to bury: ledgers, contracts, and letters. My heart raced as I spread them out. The papers revealed everything: loans taken in father's name, properties secretly sold, and my forged signature on documents I had never seen. They had been planning my erasure long before father's death. Footsteps echoed in the hall, and I quickly tucked the papers into my bag. Brian entered moments later, his eyes sharp. "What are you doing here?" he asked. I forced a smile. "Just remembering father." He stared for a moment too long, but left. My hands shook, but my mind was clear. They thought they had erased me, but I now held proof of their betrayal. I knew one thing for certain. These documents would one day become my weapon. I couldn't fight this battle alone. Betrayal this deep required allies. That's when I turned to Amelia Ward, my childhood friend. Unlike my brothers and their friends, Amelia had always stood by me. She worked as a paralegal and knew how to handle documents. One evening, I invited her over. My voice trembled as I laid the stolen papers across the table. Amelia studied each page, her brows tightening. "Natasha, this isn't just betrayal," she whispered. "This is fraud. Your brothers could go to prison if this comes to light." Her words gave me a strange mix of fear and strength. I had been raised to believe family mattered most, but now I realized justice mattered more. "Will you help me?" I asked. "Enjoy our revenge stories? Subscribe, like, and drop your location in the comments." Amelia nodded without hesitation. "They think you're weak. Let's prove them wrong." That night, we created a secret plan. I would gather more evidence, while Amelia would quietly research legal options. Every step had to be hidden, every move invisible. For the first time since father's death, I didn't feel alone. Betrayal had left me broken, but friendship gave me the strength to rise again. With Amelia's support, I started watching my brothers and their friends more carefully. Every smile they gave me, every word they spoke, it was all a lie. Still, I pretended to believe them. At dinner one night, I asked Daniel about father's old company accounts. He smirked and said, "You wouldn't understand business, Natasha. Don't worry about it." Brian laughed, adding, "Just leave it to us." Their friends joined in, mocking me like I was a child. Inside, I burned with anger. On the outside, I smiled sweetly. "Of course," I said. "You boys always know best." Later, I wrote everything in my notebook, each insult, each slip of information. Amelia taught me how betrayal often revealed itself when people felt untouchable. The more arrogant they became, the more they exposed. That night, I tested their loyalty further. I casually mentioned a rumor I'd heard about father owning secret land. Their laughter stopped for half a second before Jason quickly changed the subject. I caught it. That hesitation was truth. They thought I was clueless. They didn't know I was setting traps, collecting proof, and preparing for the day I'd turn their arrogance against them. One afternoon, Amelia called me urgently. "Natasha, you need to see this," she whispered over the phone. We met in her small office, and she handed me a file she had quietly pulled from public records. Inside were documents connected to a bank account under Daniel's name. But it wasn't just his. Brian, Jason, Michael, and Aaron were all listed as authorized users. The amounts shocked me. Millions had been funneled into this account, stolen from father's companies and investments. They've been moving money offshore too, Amelia explained. If you can tie this to the forged documents you found, the entire scheme collapses. Enjoy our revenge stories? Subscribe, like and drop your location in the comments. I stared at the file, my hands trembling. Anger rushed through me, but I swallowed it down. This wasn't the time for rage, it was time for strategy. They think I'm erased, I said softly. But I see everything now. Amelia placed a reassuring hand on mine. When the time is right, Natasha, you'll expose them. But patience is key. I nodded, gripping the file tightly. The betrayal felt unbearable, but at that moment, I understood something important. Their greed was the very weapon I would use to destroy them. After discovering the secret account, I knew I couldn't let my brothers or their friends suspect me. So I put on a mask. At family gatherings, I laughed at their jokes, even when they mocked me. I complimented their business ventures, even though I knew they were built on stolen wealth. Whenever they paraded around with their expensive cars and suits, I clapped along with everyone else. But behind my smile, I was memorizing everything: who they spoke to, where they traveled, and what they bragged about. The louder they bragged, the more evidence they handed me. Brian, especially, loved to show off. He once waved a gold watch in front of me, saying, "This cost more than your future, Natasha." I pretended to blush with embarrassment, but inside I whispered, "Keep talking, brother. Every word makes your downfall easier." At night, I shared updates with Amelia. She helped me organize files, timelines, and proof. My notebook grew thicker with secrets they didn't know I was holding. They thought betrayal had silenced me. What they didn't see was that I was learning, planning, and waiting. The mask I wore wasn't weakness, it was the sharpest weapon I had. One evening, Daniel invited his friends over for drinks. I lingered nearby, pretending to clean, while they bragged about their success. Jason laughed too loudly, clearly drunk. That's when it happened, he slipped. "Can you believe we pulled it off?" he slurred. All that land in Father Cole's name, gone, sold under Natasha's fake signature. My heart pounded, but I kept my face calm, polishing the same table corner over and over. Daniel shot Jason a furious look, and the room went silent. "You talk too much," he muttered. That single sentence confirmed everything. Jason had given me the final thread of proof. Later, in my room, I wrote it all down. Amelia always said drunken words revealed hidden truths. Now, I had a direct admission. I couldn't stop thinking about father. He trusted his sons, yet they sold his legacy like it was trash. And worse, they mocked me while doing it. I realized something then: betrayal wasn't just about being cut out of the will. It was about erasing me, rewriting history to make me invisible. That night, I whispered a promise to myself: I will make them remember my name. A week later, Amelia arrived with a pale face. She shut the door tightly before speaking. "Natasha, they're growing suspicious. If they catch you digging, they could destroy the evidence, or worse." Her words sent a chill down my spine. I knew Amelia was right. My brothers and their friends were cruel enough to betray blood. What would stop them from silencing me completely? Still, I couldn't back down. "If we wait too long, they'll bury everything," I argued. Amelia sighed, rubbing her temples. "Then you need more protection. You need allies outside of me." Her suggestion lingered in my mind. Who could I trust? Most of my relatives sided with Daniel and Brian, blinded by their money and charm. But Amelia's warning reminded me of one thing: betrayal is dangerous when cornered. That night, I started planning differently. I wouldn't just gather evidence. I would spread it, copies hidden in safe places, documents stored with people who didn't even know they were helping me. If my brothers wanted to erase me, I would become impossible to erase. Amelia looked at me with cautious pride. Good, she whispered. That's the Natasha they'll never see coming. The next stage of my plan was subtle. Instead of waiting for a final strike, I began planting doubt among them. Betrayal doesn't just break families, it also breaks trust between allies. At dinner, I casually mentioned overhearing Jason talk about hidden money. Daniel's jaw tightened, and Jason immediately denied it. I pretended to shrug, acting innocent. But the damage was done. They exchanged uneasy glances. Another time, I asked Brian why he never told Daniel about a certain meeting I saw on his calendar. His face went red, and Daniel frowned deeply. I hadn't seen such tension between them before. Amelia called it psychological warfare. By feeding small seeds of doubt, I forced them to question each other. The stronger their suspicions grew, the weaker their bond became. At night, I replayed their arguments in my mind, smiling quietly. For the first time, I wasn't the outsider, I was the shadow pulling strings. They had thought betrayal ended with me being erased. But betrayal, I realized, is a weapon that cuts both ways. And soon, I would make sure it cut deeper into them than they ever expected. It didn't take long for my seeds of doubt to grow. One evening, I passed the study and heard voices raised in anger. You told her? Daniel snapped. I didn't. Jason shouted back. Brian tried to calm them, but his nervous tone only made things worse. I quietly slipped closer, heart racing. Jason accused Daniel of keeping extra money hidden. Daniel denied it, but his shaky voice betrayed him. The argument ended with slammed doors and silence that didn't feel like victory, but like weakness. Later that night, Daniel confronted me at the kitchen table. His smile was too wide, his words too sharp. Natasha, you wouldn't be stirring trouble, would you? I tilted my head innocently. Trouble? I wouldn't even know where to start. His eyes lingered on me for a long moment before he left. My hands trembled as I gripped my glass of water, but inside, I knew the truth. The first crack had appeared in their alliance. And cracks, no matter how small, always spread. Amelia's words echoed in my mind, the stronger their greed, the easier it is to turn them against each other. I was finally seeing it happen. Amelia and I realized we couldn't take down my brothers with evidence alone, we needed someone on the inside. That's when I remembered Oliver Grant, Father's former accountant. He had quietly resigned months before Father's death, and now I understood why. I arranged a meeting with him at a quiet cafe. At first, he hesitated. Natasha, your brothers, and their friends, they're dangerous. They forced me to sign papers I didn't agree with. If I speak out, they'll ruin me. I leaned forward, sliding one of the forged documents across the table. They already ruined Father's name. Are you willing to let them do the same to you? Oliver stared at the paper, his face pale. Finally, he nodded. I'll help, but we must be careful. That night, Amelia, Oliver, and I formed an unlikely alliance. Oliver knew details we didn't, hidden accounts, property transfers, secret signatures. His knowledge tied everything together. For the first time, the evidence we held wasn't just scattered pieces. It was forming into a picture sharp enough to cut through lies. My brothers thought they had silenced Father's allies. They were wrong. His allies were becoming mine. Weeks later, I overheard Daniel raging on the phone. His voice thundered through the hall. What do you mean the money's missing? I froze, listening carefully. Whoever was on the other end was panicked. Millions had suddenly vanished from their secret account. I almost smiled. Amelia had warned me this might happen. Greed is unstable, it devours itself. When too many hands reach for the same pile, it starts to disappear. That evening, Brian and Jason stormed into the house, arguing loudly. Jason accused Brian of stealing funds. Brian shot back that Daniel was hiding profits. Their friendship crumbled right before my eyes, their voices sharp enough to slice through the walls. I didn't intervene. I sat silently in the kitchen, pretending to read, while my ears caught every word. Later, I shared everything with Amelia and Oliver. Amelia leaned back, her eyes gleaming. Perfect. Their greed is tearing them apart faster than we imagined. Keep watching. Let them destroy each other. And I knew she was right. The same money they stole to erase me was now becoming the poison rotting their bond. For the first time, I didn't feel powerless. I felt like the storm itself. The more their money vanished, the more violent their tempers grew. One night, Daniel cornered me in the hallway. His eyes were bloodshot, his fists clenched. "You've been asking too many questions," he hissed. "If I find out you're behind this, Natasha, you'll regret it." For a moment, fear gripped me. My brothers had crossed lines I never thought possible. What would stop them from hurting me physically? But then I remembered Amelia's words, "Fear feeds betrayal." I straightened my shoulders. "Behind what?" I asked calmly. "I don't understand half the things you boys talk about." His glare lasted a long time before he stormed off. My legs shook, but my heart held steady. He suspected me, but he had no proof. Later, I told Amelia and Oliver. Amelia frowned. "He's dangerous, Natasha. You need to prepare for when they stop hiding their threats." I nodded, though deep inside, something shifted. Their threats no longer felt like chains around me. They felt like proof I was winning. Because if they were this desperate, it meant my quiet revenge was already working. Amelia suggested something bold, spreading rumors, not truths. "Sometimes whispers do more damage than facts," she explained. I started carefully. At a family gathering, I casually asked Aunt Clara if Daniel was still meeting with investors overseas. She looked confused, but when Jason overheard, he stiffened. Later, he pulled Daniel aside, demanding answers. Next, I asked Brian's girlfriend if he was still buying property in secret. Her shocked reaction was enough to plant doubt. Soon, small questions grew into whispered suspicions. Their friends began doubting each other, and the cracks widened. Meanwhile, Oliver provided more hidden records. With each file, Amelia built a case so airtight, it could crush them in court. But she reminded me not to rush. The longer they tear each other apart, the less we'll need to do. I watched it unfold with quiet satisfaction. They avoided eye contact, their meetings turned into arguments, and their once boastful laughter faded into tension. They still saw me as the weak sister, but they didn't realize I was the one weaving the net tightening around them. Whispers, I realized, are sharper than knives when placed in the right ears. The final piece of evidence came by accident. One evening, I left my phone recording in the study while pretending to tidy the kitchen. Daniel, Brian, and Jason entered soon after, their voices low but clear. "This is falling apart," Brian snapped. "The money's drying up, and Jason's big mouth is making Natasha suspicious." "Don't blame me," Jason shouted. "You're the one hiding extra profits." "Enough," Daniel growled. "If Natasha talks, we're finished. We'll make sure she stays quiet, whatever it takes." My blood ran cold at those words, but the recording captured every threat, every confession. When they left, I retrieved my phone with trembling hands. That night, I played it for Amelia and Oliver. Their eyes widened. Amelia whispered, This is gold. It's not just fraud anymore. It's intent to silence you." For the first time, I held undeniable proof, not just of their crimes, but of their cruelty. I listened again, my heart steady this time. Their voices, once powerful, now sounded desperate. And I realized something important: they had handed me the rope to hang them with. The house felt like a battlefield now. Every night, arguments erupted between my brothers and their friends. The trust they once flaunted was gone. One evening, I sat quietly in the living room while they shouted in the study. The walls shook with their rage. "You're hiding money. Brian accused. You forged extra documents. Jason snapped. Daniel's roar silenced them. If Natasha exposes us, none of this matters. Do you want to lose everything because of her? Hearing my name used like a weapon both terrified and strengthened me. They finally admitted what I always knew: I mattered. Later, I looked at Amelia and Oliver across the table, my voice calm. They're close to destroying each other. Now we strike. Amelia smiled, tapping the thick file of evidence we had built. We wait for one last slip, something public, undeniable. Then, Natasha, it will be your turn. I leaned back, imagining their downfall. For years, I had been their silent shadow, their overlooked sister. Now, the cracks were wide open, and soon, would step into the light with the truth sharp enough to cut them all down. The opportunity came sooner than expected. My brothers announced a grand business dinner, inviting investors and family members. They wanted to prove their wealth and power, pretending nothing was wrong. When I received the invitation, I nearly laughed. They thought I was too powerless to matter, just a guest at their show. But Amelia had a different vision. This is perfect, she whispered. We'll reveal everything in front of the people they most want to impress. Their empire will collapse in one night. I felt fear coil in my stomach, but determination burned hotter. Amelia and Oliver prepared the documents, the recordings, and the files. My role was simple: act natural, stay quiet, and choose the right moment. As the night approached, I practiced keeping my expression calm. My mask had fooled them for months. Now it had to fool them one last time. On the evening of the dinner, I stood before the mirror in my black dress. For the first time, I didn't see the forgotten sister. I saw someone dangerous, someone ready. They believed they were walking into a night of triumph. But for me, it would be the night of reckoning. The dinner hall gleamed with gold chandeliers and polished floors. My brothers strutted across the room, their friends following like shadows. They laughed loudly, shaking hands with investors, sipping wine like kings. I walked in quietly, heads turning as though they were surprised I dared to attend. Daniel leaned close and muttered, "Remember your place tonight, Natasha. No drama." His smirk was poison, but I only smiled. Amelia and Oliver were already in the room, blending with the crowd. Our plan was simple but deadly: wait until Daniel, Brian, and their friends boasted about their success, then shatter the illusion with undeniable proof. As the speeches began, I studied them. Daniel bragged about business growth, Brian flaunted luxury, Jason cracked jokes about easy money. Every word dripped with arrogance. My heart beat faster with each lie. My hands brushed against the folder hidden in my bag, the truth waiting to be revealed. The storm was here. I could feel it in my bones. All the betrayal, all the humiliation, all the pain, they had brought me to this very moment. And tonight, the sister they erased would be the one to erase them. I called for a family meeting in our parents' old dining hall, the very place where my brothers used to laugh at me. This time, I was the one sitting at the head of the table. I invited not only family but also the community leaders and business partners who once doubted me. The tension was thick. My brothers walked in late, wearing forced smiles, while their so-called friends avoided eye contact. Everyone knew something was coming, but only I held the truth. I had prepared documents, photos, and testimonies that revealed their lies. Their betrayal would no longer hide in shadows. As I watched them squirm in their seats, I knew the storm I had been building for years was ready to break. I stood slowly, letting silence fill the room before speaking. For years, you treated me as a burden. But today, I will show everyone who you really are. I opened the projector, flashing images of their stolen money, messages plotting against me, and contracts signed in greed. Gasps filled the hall as evidence spilled across the screen. One by one, I read their words aloud, each line cutting through the false image they had built. My brothers' faces turned pale, their friends whispered frantically. There was no escape this time, every person present could see their betrayal. Instead of rage, I felt calm. My strength wasn't in revenge alone, it was in exposing the truth. The humiliation they forced on me was now their own. The room erupted in chaos. Business partners pulled away, shouting about broken deals. Former friends who once mocked me now shook their heads in disgust at my brothers. Their empire crumbled before my eyes, but I didn't gloat. I simply sat down, letting their downfall speak for itself. Chad tried to defend himself, but every word only proved his guilt further. Nathan buried his head in his hands, defeated. The men who once seemed untouchable were now begging for understanding. But the crowd had seen enough. No one would trust them again. I felt the weight of years of pain finally lifting. They had destroyed themselves with their own actions, I had only shined the light. Watching them fall was the sweetest justice I could imagine. When the dust settled, I walked out of the hall with my head high. For the first time, I wasn't the broken sister, the forgotten child, or the quiet victim. I was Natasha Cole, the woman who turned betrayal into power. My brothers lost everything they once valued: respect, trust, and the empire they thought was untouchable. As for me, I built a new life on truth and resilience. Friends I gained were real, not parasites. The world finally saw me for who I was, not who they said I was. Standing in the sunlight, I realized revenge wasn't just about taking something back. It was about reclaiming my voice, my dignity, and my place. And I had done exactly that. If this story moved you, don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more powerful narratives, and share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear what part hit you the hardest. Thanks for watching.